Welcome to today's webinar with Pratt. I'm Leila, one of the campaign managers here at Birchal. And just before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land I'm based on today. Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Birchal is working with Pratt on a crowdsourced funding offer. The information and discussion this today is for informational purpose only and should not be considered as advice or as a recommendation to invest. Please always consider your offer doc and the general CSF risk warning. Everything is going to be available on the website birchal.com before you can make your decision. Now, how today's session is going to run. Andrew and the team is going to take us through a presentation of the business that is going to go around for 30 minutes. I know that they could talk for hours because they're really passionate about it, but we're going to keep it to 30 minutes. And we're going to learn about how the idea came about, the numbers that they have achieved so far, and what are the plans after this capital raise. After that, we switch to a Q&A session. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you're going to see a little Q&A bubble. If you have a question during the session, please pop it in the Q&A box, and we're going to answer that at the end. Lastly, we are recording today's session, so if you have to jump off early, our recording will be sent around. That's it from me. I'm very happy to introduce Andrew.
Thanks very much, Leila. I will just share my screen and hopefully I can do this well.
We believe you. The fourth button in the bottom of the screen.
Can you see that?
Not yet. In the meantime, can we all agree that there's just too many buttons? Well, we don't need all of that. It just makes things more complicated.
I can't get that.
Can you click on share screen? The green button? Yes, there you go.
Yeah, but that's not what I want to show.
So on the top, view options. Can you open any other pages?
Can you see that?
Yes, there we go. So just click on present on the top right. There you go. Present full screen.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Everyone, thanks very much for coming along today. Greatly appreciate your time, and we're really excited about the presentation that we're giving today around the Prepped Hydration brand. We're excited to be sharing the vision and shaping the future of hydration. That said, we're using translational research and translational science that we've started in the sports space, and it's a privilege to be sharing this space today with Professor Graham Young, who's the founder of our science and also one of our brand ambassadors and Olympian, Izzy Bat-Doyle. So when this brand started, we originally started with the prepped hydration products. You can see Izzy's actually got one in front of her on the desk there at the Run House. I think that's where you are, Izzy. But Izzy finishing a competition representing Australia. So the Prep Performance brand is the one that we commenced with. We have since branched out and have brought to the market in around about the last 12 months, Safety by Prepped, and again, using translational science to bring that into the marketplace to help miners who suffer from dehydration, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. And another vertical where dehydration is an issue is for our active families or school kids. So we'll talk about that a little bit more today. The first part of today is this is a short 1-minute video that just explains how our science works in a real simple form.
Did you know that 60% of your body is water? It only makes sense that your body performs at its best when you are properly hydrated. Poor hydration is one factor that can lead to a poor microbiome, causing your gut to fall out of balance, with bad bacteria taking control over the good bacteria. Thanks to breakthroughs in medical science, we now know how to rehydrate your body more effectively using unique prebiotic fibre called resistant starch. It resists digestion and allows for more efficient water absorption in the gut, so you can start to hydrate quicker and more effectively. A healthy gut microbiome ensures your digestion is operating healthily. Your immune system remains strong. It even sends hormonal signals to your brain to improve mental health. Your body's wellness depends on hydration. Feeling better and functioning at your best starts with Prep's unique formula of resistant starch and electrolytes. Try it today and discover the difference good gut health can make. And stay prepped for life.
I'll hand over to Graham now, and Graham can talk about the background of our technology and where this translational science originated.
Thanks very much, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be part of the webinar and to discuss this really excellent idea going forward. So that just people know a little bit about me, I'm Emeritus Matthew Flinders, Emeritus Distinguished Professor at Flinders University, previously also at Melbourne University. And I'm a fellow of various academies of health and medical sciences and technological sciences and engineering. And I've really spent the last 4 decades researching strategies to achieve a very healthy bowel. And during that time, I was actually just checking this morning, we've had about 48 scientific publications that form the basis of this broad area of improving bowel health. But it's really in the last 20 to 25 years that the research I've undertaken with colleagues both from Yale University and from Christian Medical College in India, where we have really looked at trying to improve the bowel's capacity to absorb fluids. In medical terms, we're talking about oral rehydration solutions that really act to very quickly correct dehydration due to diarrhea. And I was introduced to this idea that a specialized starch, it's actually high amylose maize starch, which in the beginning was just an Australian product, which acts as what we call a prebiotic. In other words, it's really a form of dietary fiber. And it's one of those fibers that the bacteria in the bowel, the microbiome, really love. And from this resistant starch, they generate a number of very important naturally produced chemical compounds. They're called short-chain fatty acids. And what they do is they actually act to improve the balance of the bacteria in the first instance, and then improve the lining of the bowel. Actually, they have anti-cancer properties, but most importantly, really, they keep the epithelium of the bowel healthy. They improve the barrier function. And is with regard to what we're really talking about with these products, they really do enhance fluid and electrolyte uptake in the bowel. This resistant starch product that's included in these products is now officially being given what's called GRAS status, or generally regarded as safe status from the FDA, as a medical food. So we're talking about something that basically is a food. It's very safe to use, and it's quite widely and readily available now.
This one's for you too, Graham.
So the physiology behind of this is really described in this slide. If you look at the green dots is referring to where glucose in a drink, or else the glucose that's released from very digestible dietary starch, actually acts on the lining of the small intestine. It gets absorbed, and at the same time, it actually improves fluid absorption. So that's one of the reasons why hydration drinks have at least some glucose in them. But typically, sports drinks have far too much glucose for this process. We know in medicine, we only use a fraction of the glucose because you get more efficient water absorption with a much lower glucose content. And that is, in fact, a key point of the composition of the prepped range of products. You can ignore the blue dots because they're relating to more slowly digesting starch. But when you talk about resistant starch, that's reflected by the red dots, and that is when the starch doesn't get digested by our normal gut enzymes. It gets down into the large bowel or the colon, depending on how you like to view the technology. And that's where it's actually what we call fermented by the bacteria, generates the short-chain fatty acids. And what that does is that suddenly switches on fluid absorption in the large intestine. And the capability in an adult is somewhere between 3 and 5 litres per day, which is actually quite a lot of fluid when you're talking about being able to rehydrate. So to really take full advantage of the entire absorptive capacity of the intestine, not just the small intestine, but the bowel, you can't achieve the large intestine absorption with glucose. You really have to have this resistant starch there so that the bacteria ferment it and produce those substances.
Thanks, Graham. And did you want to talk about the study that you did with the Adelaide Crows using that translational science from the original space, and maybe talk about where the original science happened with Gates Foundation?
Yeah, so if we just go back to the medical studies, we've actually published on 4 randomized controlled trials in medical studies, which have actually been testing the capacity of the resistant starch in oral rehydration, firstly to improve outcomes in adults with cholera. Those studies have been done in India. And then to improve outcomes in small children, again in India, and most of them with rotavirus, but some of them with cholera. And what we found with the resistant starch product in the adults with cholera, not only did we improve their hydration and their absorption, but we shortened the duration of diarrhea, which is the first product to ever have really achieved that in terms of oral rehydration solutions in the context of cholera. And while you probably don't want to know, if a bad attack of cholera, you can lose 20 litres a day, and you can immediately see if you didn't replenish that, you'd die. You'd lose too much water. But you don't have to have IV fluids. It can be achieved by oral rehydration. So we proved that idea very much in the medical area in severe cases of diarrhea. But we realised that if we were going to apply that to dehydration in places like industry, sports, just day-to-day living, we needed a somewhat different formulation that was more suited to, for example, exertion, loss by sweating as opposed to diarrhea. So we had to change the electrolytes and so on. And we went ahead and created the sports hydration drink, the PrEP drink, which we then tested in the Adelaide Crows. I think 2014, Andrew, was 10 years ago when we did that. And we did that in January in a very hot Adelaide summer, when the temperature every day, I'm pretty sure, was at least 35 and almost hit 40 on a couple of those days. And we did what's called a randomized controlled trial, and it was a crossover design. It just means that we very rigorously, scientifically test the capacity of this prepped product with the resistant starch in it compared to the players' usual practices. So in one period, we let them run their normal hydration schemes, and in the other, we provided them with the prep the night before and actually, during and after the game. And the slide here, I'm not quite sure how well people can actually see that, but really we showed better overall hydration. A really important thing was that because they'd taken some the night before, they were better hydrated the next morning. It's amazing how dehydrated you can be in the morning when you wake up. And the hydration status of the players was better when they took the prep the night before. And then also they achieved better recovery. And so if you can see the graphs there, you can see the incremental benefit, which was a significant amount of fluid, occurred at each of the 3 periods: the start of the study, that is the morning, the end of the exertion in serious training episodes in hot weather, and then a couple of hours later after the recovery period. And it's really, you can see that the recovery period really achieves very quick rehydration when you finally stop exerting yourself and get into the fluids. But we got a better benefit from the resistant starch containing solution. And as I think we'll mention a bit later on, Andrew, that has significant implications for decision making, cognitive, and so on.
Definitely. So currently, or these
I
are the
forgot to say, Andrew, I'm a Western Bulldogs supporter too. I can see the Bulldogs sign up there, so that's good.
Yes, and they ran the game out well last night. Great.
Yes, that's right.
We can see these are the teams and that have used our products since our inception, or since we started the brand back right basically at the start of 2019. So we've continually built, and there are more, but obviously the slide's not big enough. But currently, as you would have seen at the start, we've now introduced Travis Head to be a part of our ambassador team, and we've isolated Travis to be a part of the new product that we have, the Advantage Plus product that we've brought to the market for active families. And the reason we've done that with Travis is he wanted to provide and use his brand to do something healthy and something good for children. And he also wanted to support a South Australian business. So he came on board with us, which has been amazing for our brand. Since Travis has done that, which was only back in January, we've been trying for about 18 months to get product into the hands of Alex Demonor. That has now happened, and he's trialing it, and is from all reports, it gives some really positive feedback around that. We've had Cameron Munster come to us, who plays in the NRL. Damien Cook is in the NRL for South Sydney. Liam Knight plays for the Canterbury Bulldogs in the NRL. So starting to get into a lot of other people or athletes as well. There's about another 4 or 5 AFL players that have come to us. The Carlton Football Club has come to us. And I don't know if anyone's a cycling fan, but they would have seen Israel Premier Tech have a win just recently. And they're trialing the product as well in the UCI racing, or the World Racing for the men. And also over in the IPL, Jason Berendorf, who's another Western Australian athlete cricketer that used our product. So we're really seeing that we're expanding, and that brand awareness and our ability to build brand and get traction in the market is growing significantly. And that's been a lot of fun. So as I said, the list of our brand ambassadors there, I think the thing that we do pin our hat on a lot is that of all of these brand ambassadors, there's 4 there that are Olympians, 3 of them on the track and or the road, with Izzy potentially on the road, but also Matt Temple in the pool. So 4 Olympians. I mean, they are the most highly tested and athletes that just do extraordinary amounts of training every week. And I'll let Izzy talk to that in a moment. But we really hang our hat on that. At the moment, we've got 4 unbelievable athletes in terms of Olympians on board, but we've got a cross section across a whole host of other sports as well. And there's other ambassadors that fall outside of that we couldn't fit in there. But yeah, we're really proud of the ambassador network that we're growing. We can see that just continuing to grow. And we've got, I guess, the likes of other ambassadors that we've talking to and we would like to get in, but particularly soccer, tennis, and basketball are a couple of sports we're really keen to tap into as well. In terms of building brand, there's probably, for those people that are in the sports space, there's probably not a brand that is bigger than this one in terms of everyone knows about Strava. There's a lot of people that have got Strava as an app on their phone and use it to track their fitness. We are one of only 50 brands globally that have been invited by Strava to Camp Strava in May. You can see that there, so in a few weeks. This is an extraordinary event. These on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can see that we've done a couple of challenges with Strava in the past. We did one in 2020. We did another one in 2022. And in terms of participation and what we got out of that event was amazing. But this invitation to this event, so we sit down with 50 other brands. We sit down with the founders of Strava. And in terms of a launch pad for us to launch, not only globally, but particularly into the US, this event is going to be a really, really big opportunity for us. And it's you can't buy it. You just have to be a brand that's doing the right thing. And as we can see there, the theme is just around brands that are helping people move better. Camp Strava do this every year. They did it last year. Last year's event was all around tech and tech in sport. So clearly we didn't fit into that, but we do fit into the one for this year. So we're really proud of that. And that's all just about building brand and being aware of who we are and what's going on, which is fantastic. Izzy and Graham will both talk to this. Graham, maybe if you want to talk to start with around the cognitive decision-making and what happens when people are dehydrated. And then Izzy, you can take over and maybe just talk about an average week for you, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So, well, of course, you can look at me and tell that I'm sort of no longer an active athlete or anything like that. So I'm not at risk of dehydrating myself at times when so I won't be able to speak to it in the same sort of way as Izzy is. But you know, there's just so much literature around that points firstly to the issue of dehydration in a whole host of environments. It's not just sports, it's industry, and we'll touch on mining. And we've even seen data, what I think we referred to just briefly later on, where school kids get dehydrated during the day because they get distracted from doing things like drinking. You know, they're playing, they're running around, they may be in hot environments, and so and even in places like aged care as well. So really, the risk of dehydration is really very high. There's a large amount of data that actually shows that once you're hitting about 1.5% or so loss of body mass, that's actually then equivalent to, depends on the weight of the person, but about a litre of fluid loss, really. That's effectively what it really means, that your mental capacity, that's the cognitive function, is just the fancy word for that. Your mental capacity can be affected. Literally, it really just can be tiredness and lethargy, but it can also be crucial decision making. And so if you're in a high performance environment or a risky work environment, you're really starting to run the risk of doing the wrong thing. And on that slide, there's a few references to situations where this has been tested very, very carefully in an objective way. So tennis accuracy can be reduced by 30%, which is, to me, a big reduction with just what you would call a borderline dehydration at 1.5%. Basketball skills are affected, and cricket bowling accuracy reduced by 17% seems to me to be a serious problem as well. Although that it looks like that's at a higher degree of dehydration. But really, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're dehydrated, you're really at risk of compromising your performance, your safety, etc. And in its simplest terms, it's just about tiredness and lethargy and lack of energy, but it can be at a more serious mental level as well. Thanks.
Izzy, tell us a little bit about your experience with PrEP and what an average week looks like for you. And can you remember where that photo is taken for that one?
Yeah, I won't be forgetting that one anytime soon. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased to have been with PrEP since the end of 2020. And it's really great to see the brand grow and develop its products over those years. And since then, I've had quite a lot of success on the track and the roads. Being able to compete for Australia at the Tokyo Olympics. And also since then, the cross-country World Championships, the Budapest World Championships in the marathon, World Championships in the half marathon, and hopefully Paris later this year, and the Commonwealth Games in the 5K and 10K. So I've had a busy few years, and PrEP's been a staple, part of my training week and my competition. And I've literally just come on this call after finishing one of my harder training sessions of the week, and I smashed my PrEP Recover just before I sat down to make sure I was getting myself straight into recovery. But yeah, I'm an athlete that I spend a lot of time training as a distance runner. I run twice a day, most days, up to, in marathon training, 200 Ks a week. But, in normal training, 160, 180 Ks a week. So, it's big days. It's a lot of hours where I am exerting myself, sweating a lot. And I also find it pretty hard straight after a session to feel like I want to eat any food. So PrEP really ticks the box for me as being something that I can get down straight away, start my recovery. But of course, it doesn't just start post-training. It starts before training as well. And I use the Prime drinks as well before all my tough training sessions, my longer efforts, longer runs, you know, harder interval training sessions where I'm going to be really pushing myself. So yeah, that two-step process for me really helps feel like I'm ticking that hydration box. And I really do notice it in the sense of, and I've told Andrew before, but I get drug tested quite frequently, where I have to produce a urine sample straight after a competition. And, you know, it can take some athletes hours to produce a sample and, you know, sitting around waiting. But I have noticed since having prepped that, yeah, my sample is quicker to come through, and it's definitely clearer. So I can see that visually in my actual, in that way, but I can feel it in my body, being able to recover. And for me, prepped is something that it's a year-round thing, but I do really feel like it is more crucial when I'm thinking about races where it is hot. And in Tokyo, it was, you know, 30 plus degrees, really high humidity. And we're looking towards the same conditions in Paris this year. So it's definitely going to be a staple in my kind of training routine and my competition preparation for Paris this year.
Amazing. And Izzy, just quickly, how have you seen the implementation of the prep products for, obviously, your running group you've got there, Runners One, you've got a lot of members that run with you. How have you seen people within your running community take on the product that are not at the elite level that you are, but they're obviously elite for their own, whether they're running 10 kilometers or whether they're running their first ever half marathon, it's an elite performance for them. So how are they using the product?
Definitely. So aside from being an elite athlete myself, I'm a running coach and work with a lot of recreational runners in our running group. And I was just chatting to my mum this morning, actually, who I coach, and she's 60, in her 60s. I won't say exactly, in her 60s. And she did the Boston Marathon this weekend, and she was saying to me she was so happy because she took two primes and two recovers over with her in her suitcase to prepare for the race. And it turned out that it was a little bit warmer for that race than they would have anticipated. And she was really glad that she had her prepped. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people in the recreational running space feel like prep's become a really important part of their training and competition as well. And I think people just really like to have that idea that they're ticking that box of looking after their hydration. There's so many things that go into having a good performance at whatever level you're talking about, recreational or professional. But if you're looking after your hydration, it is, you know, one of the things you can really get wrong. Unfortunately, had an athlete just a couple of weeks ago at one of the local races have an incident running a half marathon and collapse, and went to hospital and was told that she'd suffered from dehydration. And it wasn't really a warm day, particularly, maybe up to 20 degrees here in Adelaide. But I think it just shows that how crucial hydration is and how easily it can be overlooked. And you think that you're having, you know, you're drinking water, you should be hydrated, but it's a lot more complex than that. And I think that the science that we've gone through and Graham's outlined here really shows you that just those small percentages of being dehydrated can put you in a position where, unfortunately, this runner was, who ended up, you know, in hospital and being dehydrated and not really having any idea. And one of the things that I had suggested to her after that event was saying, look, if you're not using prepped, I think it's something you should add to your repertoire.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Izzy. So if we look at comparisons, and this is not to say that any of these drinks are better or worse or anything else. In actual fact, the way we look at those sports drinks or the drinks that sit in this space is we complement them with the prime and recover formulation in terms of if someone's drinking Endura sports nutrition during an event, they'll absorb those fluids more efficiently because they're using our product. What we're saying here, though, is that we are the bookends of these sports events, like Izzy was just talking about then, in terms of what happens before and after training, before and after races, and how they stay better hydrated. And so this is where we feel that we complement a marketplace that's already there. We are certainly significantly different, and there is no one else in the market that's using the science that we are at this point in time, which makes us significantly different to everyone else. If we just look at the opportunity that is the sports drink market, it's a huge market. And that's everything. It's including your Coca-Cola, it's including Pepsi, everything. It's just about money that's spent on products that people can consume. We understand that the market is huge, and we know that our products that are based on fiber, they can help better fluid absorption, cognitive performance, and all those sorts of things. It's a huge market, and we only just want to tap into a very, very small % of that. If we look at the kids hydration market, or the kids beverage market, and this is just talking about the US, and this is these active families, and Graham touched on it a second ago around cognitive function at school and our kids learning. And the reason this Advantage Plus product came to the market is it came through a conversation with some parents around their children doing before school sport, then ending up in the classroom, having consumed, it could be any product they consume after sport. It could be an Powerade, it could be an Up and Go, it could be anything that's high in sugar. So they've got adrenaline running through their veins or through their blood. They've got sugar on top of that. So children can't sit still after before school sport in lesson 1, probably having a sugar crash in lesson 2, and not really starting to focus on their school day until we get into after recess, or, so they're effectively not wasting, but they're not maximizing their school opportunity. We also know that the prep products with Advantage Plus, it's improving the children's ability to absorb fluids. It's working on making their immunity work better, and also has some links to mental health as well. The best thing about this, and with Travis coming on board with this, is Travis Head makes it cool for the kids to drink. And we also know parents want to put healthy products in front of kids, or put them in their lunchbox and have them consume something healthy. So we feel that this Advantage Plus product in the space that it's in can be a real winner for us. What is the problem for Australians? And Graham touched on it before: lethargy and loss of energy. And so I think a lot of the people on this call would call it guilty, or would put their hand up and say that at 2 o'clock in the middle of the afternoon, we need to go and get a coffee. We've only been at work in the office, yes, or we've been doing something, but that afternoon coffee pickup, it's a sign of lethargy or loss of energy, and we need a little pickup. And more often than not, the only thing that it is would be dehydration. 78% of parents want their children to consume more water. It's hard to do. So if we can give kids something that allows them to tap into a fluid reserve that sits in their gut that they can tap into and use, it'll keep kids better hydrated. So we feel that this is a really good space for us to work with, and spend time and helping kids be better hydrated and help with better outcomes at school as well. And again, if we compare to the other products that are on the market, the difference with us in this space is we're a fruit-based smoothie, so we're not lactose. We're lactose-free. We're not a milk-based product, but we're low in sugar, and we have the sustained fiber, or the resistant starch that Graham was talking about earlier, and up to 60% less sugar than some of these competitors of ours in this space. We move into the mining sector, and again, we go back to we're using translational science. So originally used in India, we brought it into the sports space. Through COVID has taught us that we couldn't be reliant particularly on sport, and sport has probably been sport or mass participation events. The fitness industry, those sorts of industries have been the ones that have been the slowest to bounce back from COVID in a lot of ways. In the effect that events are either on, they'll cancel, we couldn't go, you couldn't get into that state, whatever it may be. So we knew through COVID we needed to pivot as a business and do something different, and that's why that translational science is so important to us, to be able to tap into different industries where dehydration is an issue. And this is only, well, I wouldn't say it's a tip of the iceberg, but there are certainly a few other industries that we'd really like to tap into off the back of getting Advantage Plus for the kids or the active family space right, and then obviously the mining industry as well. So we were recently featured in a Safe to Work magazine, which is highly regarded within the mining sector, and it went to a whole host of people. You can see the readership there. This report, or this source of information, comes purely from WorkCover WA. WorkCover WA. Obviously the biggest mining space in Australia. But I think if we look over here, $106 million in claims paid out to people that were injured at work in WA in 2017, 2018. If we look at the column next to that, if you can't read it, it's $73,000 was the average claim in the mining space because of an injury or something like that. Now, if we think about why is that important, and those numbers are huge, and we'd love to be able to help shape that marginally, We know through research and research papers out there that 70% of miners arrive at work already dehydrated. Graham touched on it before. One of the biggest factors that is, it's not helping, but it's not a good outcome for us, is the continual increase of protective wear that miners need to work. So Graham spoke before about losing a litre means you're around about 1.5% dehydrated based on who you are and your body weight. But we know that wearing protective clothing can increase that up to 2.5 or 2.25 litres per hour being lost. When we speak to sports dietitians around athletes and them replacing fluids lost during exercise, if they've lost 2 litres of fluid in exercise, they need to consume 3 litres to get back to parity. So if I'm an employee working 12 hours in the mine site and I'm losing 2.5 litres or 2.25 litres an hour, I need to consume around about 18 litres of fluid over the course of that day to be able to stay well hydrated, and that's almost impossible. We also know, if we think about the previous slide and the injuries and accidents that are happening, being just 3% dehydrated can slow reaction time to the extent of having a blood alcohol reading of 0.08. So these are the reasons why we were able to get into the mining industry in the first place, and why we were able to get some trials done with Rio Tinto and then work through those trials to produce a market fit product that's ready to go. Graham, did you want to talk, and you've touched on it already, but just maybe touch on again around the impact that high sugar products have in the small intestine and physiologically what happens to fluid when that happens?
Yeah, sure. So just to remind everybody, fluid is absorbed in the small intestine, and that fluid absorption is aided by the presence of glucose. But glucose does not aid fluid absorption in the large bowel. It doesn't help that at all. And most of the sports drinks, as we've already said, they're really got sugar in to be energy drinks as opposed to hydration improving drinks. So that this is the only product that has got resistant starch in it that actually taps into the capacity of the large bowel to absorb fluid. And as you've said, Andrew, that is salvaging some of the unabsorbed fluid and really pulling it back into the body. That really changes this product dramatically from anything else. But this is the one that also we know from other research improves the microbiome and improves the bacterial balance, which really sets you up for the ensuing days. It's not just helping you at that particular point in time, but it's making your bowel more functional as you move ahead in subsequent days and weeks.
Excellent. Thanks, Graham. So if we look at the financials for we did calendar year 22 versus 23. We can see that most of the sales are still made through the prepped hydration products. Safety and Advantage Plus are only really starting to trickle through in terms of sales at this point in time. We know that we had about a 30-odd% year-on-year growth over that period. But we feel like we've spent a lot of the time in the last 12 months really building brand and building brand awareness around our products, and particularly then diverging some time, energy and effort into bringing these 2 new products to market. So instead of having, like we did with our last 2 raises with Birchal Prepped and Prepped Hydration and Prep Recover, or Prep Prime and Prep Recover, we've actually now diversified and got more revenue streams that can bring revenue into the business, which we're really excited about. And they're complementary markets in the sense that they are in a space where dehydration is an issue. So we're looking forward to that. I did put a little red dot around October 2023, which is where sales did fall off, and that was just purely based on supply chain issues where we actually ran out of some product, and that hurt sales, but they've obviously bounced back in November. So we can go through some more of that a little bit later on. Where do we see our distribution points and how do we see these products going to market? So the sports retail, if we talk about the prep products to start with, we've got the sports retail, supermarkets, convenience stores being on the runs and here in South Australia, but they're expanding throughout the East Coast as well, and also over into WA at this point in time. E-commerce is a place where we do sell a lot as well. Marketplaces, so marketplace like there's a brand called TWL or The Wildlife, which is a CrossFit marketplace where a lot of people go and buy their equipment and things like that to exercise in, paraphernalia and apparel. We're on the marketplace there as well. And sports clubs are a big opportunity for us as well, whether that be local football clubs, local cricket clubs, running clubs like the Runners One or the Run House that Izzy's involved in. They're big opportunities for us as well. In terms of safety by Prepped, it's B2B. So we'll go direct to businesses, mining, construction sites, those sorts of places. E-commerce people will buy it as well. And then marketplace. So there's a couple of marketplaces that are available for us as well. So the safety culture, which is a massive big business, and their business is around providing standard operating procedures for business. And so they've got a marketplace that sits alongside that. We're in the final stages of having our safety products range there. And then Advantage Plus, similar to our retail space for the prep products, but supermarkets and convenience stores will make up a big piece of that. But then individual school canteens, which is where we've done a number of trials with kids so far, is a great way to get the product in front of people. A couple of little testimonials there. One from Izzy talking about how she loves the product. Tristan Lynn, who's a superintendent at Rio Tinto, that helped us with our initial trials into Rio, into the mining space. And I guess the three major points out of that study were miners had more energy in the morning, they felt less fatigued in the afternoon, and they slept better at night. So dehydration and interrupted sleep go hand in hand, or being well hydrated and having a good night's sleep goes well hand in hand as well. And then Chris Paul, who's the director of sport at a school here in Adelaide, was really, really pumped with the results of the girls got from using the product in their training, but then also they were able to focus better throughout the day, which is exactly what we're after. We want our kids to be able to focus well at school. So that brings us to the end of the presentation today. So did you want me to stop sharing now, Layla?
Yes, please. We miss your faces. Thank you so much. This was a full class. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that investors as well. We got a lot of questions, but before we get started, Izzy, did you mention that you ran 160 kilometers per week? Is that?
Yeah, that's about it. Usually more, actually. That's kind of the baseline.
Andrew, I was really proud of myself that I ran 10 kilometers last week.
That's still very good.
Thank you. I feel better now.
Well, it's an elite effort. Elite effort for individuals is elite, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. The data that the professor presented as well was really interesting. We talked about how it reduces performance in athletes. We talked about how it reduces productivity for workers. But Andrew, you mentioned before how 80% of Australians are dehydrated. What are the implications of that in our long-term health? Obviously, productivity is important. Everything else is very important. But what if I don't feel it straight away? How do I pay the price later on?
Yeah, look, I can partly answer that, but I think Graham would be a much better person to answer that. In terms of what happens from a dehydration perspective and how do I function as a person, look, if I just talk about it from a sports perspective, I know that people would get home, and I've experienced this myself. If you've gone for a run or a ride or whatever, you get home, and one of the sure signs that you're dehydrated is you're a bit grumpy. Or you feel like you just want to fall asleep on the couch when you get home, and you feel like you've got, for lack of a better phrase, an exercise-induced hangover as opposed to a real hangover. But it's dehydration, which impairs our ability to think, act, and be calm, I guess, in the way that we're doing things. In terms of the long-term effects of dehydration, I think Graham would be a far better person to talk about that. But yeah, so Graham, what would you say to that?
Yes, look, I don't think there's long-term effects of dehydration. I mean, they're all short-term effects. You really have to deal with it there and then, or else you become particularly ill. Andrew has touched on it. You can have mild dehydration over a period of time. I think, though, if you are looking at the future going forward, the fact that the starch here also improves the microbiome and makes the bacteria in the bowel healthier, that we're now learning that the microbiome in our intestine is so important to so many other areas in health. Now, we don't want to jump immediately and say, well, resistant starch in this product is going to fix all those problems. But I mean, there is no question, and we've done these studies in India, and we know what happens in Australians when they consume the resistant starch. It definitely changes the functionality of your bacteria. And that in itself is going to have a general well-being influence as well.
Thank you. Can we jump to the Q&A? And for the investors watching, now is your time to jump ahead and ask any questions. I already have some here to get started. What is the nutrition in the mining product? What is the nutrition like, I'm assuming?
The nutrition?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the nutrition in the mining product, we've taken our Prep Recover product, we've tweaked it slightly because we need to keep the resistant starch in there. We need to keep the electrolytes. They work in a hot environment more often than not. There's a few mine sites that are in cold areas, but vast majority of mine sites are in really hot, arid environments. And so therefore, with fluid loss being one of the major impactors of dehydration, but also of cognitive fatigue or the ability to make good decisions at times when people are at work, we knew that we needed to keep the formulation pretty similar. So what we have done is we've added vitamin B12 at this point in time to both the safety product and the Advantage Plus product. But as we continue to make new batches, we'll continue to tweak that to make them both a little bit different and be market fit for both those markets. But from a fundamental point of view, we know that we need to keep that base formulation really simple or really similar to the original formulation.
Beautiful. And Andrew, will it only be a ready-to-drink version?
Yeah, great question. At this stage, that is what we'll do with the safety product and the Advantage Plus products. And the reason for that is over the course of roughly 18 months, where we went backwards and forwards with Rio Tinto, and we trialed different powder, because we've got powder formulations. There's some tubs sitting behind me, and we've got sachets as well. It just comes back to the convenience of the person being able to grab it and make it ready to use or easy to use to I guess take away barriers of entry. And so if people need to get home from work and mix their own shake up and those sorts of things, sometimes that might be a bit hard for them. So initially, yes, we'll sit with the ready to drinks and we can expand the range down the track.
Beautiful. Phil's asking, how are you protecting your research and IP? Are you seeing competitors and copycats trying to get into this market as well?
That's a great question. And lucky there's a lot of smart people that sit around the table that have helped us in the early stages when we had this started. So we have a patent on our formulation that expires at the end of 2034. So no one else can touch, no one else can do and copy us in this space at this point in time. Now that patent's not worldwide, it's not global, but it does hit in Australia, New Zealand, the US, UK, and 5 or 6 other countries throughout Europe, which France, Italy, Germany, Spain. So it's certainly in the market. So we want to tap into it, and where we feel that we can have the best protection around that science, that's where we're the patents for. Beautiful.
Really good question. Will these products go to resellers or only direct to consumer?
Yeah, so no, it's a good question, and I spoke about that before. It will go through both. We'll be able to do B2B. So at the moment we are in and again, there's a lot of stuff at the moment that's in the final stages, which is frustrating because it'd be nice to have had it all ticked off before we get to this point. But we are in the final stages of you need a vendor number to provide product directly into a mine site. So we are in the final stages for having a vendor number for BHP. We've already got things in place with Rio Tinto to be able to do that, but those things are coming on so we can sell direct, but then also things like Safety Cultures Marketplace, which is where anyone and everyone, it's a much bigger, I guess, supermarket for people to go to. There'll be more people going to that. I mean, whilst there's 264,000 people in Australia that work in mine sites, there'll be more than that going to Safety Cultures Marketplace. So I guess we can have both.
Beautiful. We had a few questions kind of asking the same thing about distribution. So I'm going to just ask one thing before that. Brandon is asking, what changes have you made to the supply chain to avoid the issues like you had previously, I think in October last year?
Oh yeah. So the issue with that was the ability to get the product was the issue. And that's just a backlog of people from and speaking to the manufacturers, and we're really lucky that one of our major shareholders, Steric, is our manufacturer. So they do look after us really well, but they were just feverishly trying to find some product or ingredient, which we could have got. It was going to be extremely expensive, so we decided to wait a little bit longer to get that product. And I guess, you know, trying to forecast in a small business or in the business that we're in at the moment just meant that we missed that timing by about 6 weeks, which meant we, you know, ran out of stock for near on a month. It's call it a growing pain. We sold stock faster than we thought we would, which meant sales were better the few months earlier. But in terms of how do we mitigate that, I think it's just being able to generate more sales, and more sales means we order product more regularly, and so therefore we'll be able to get around that because we'll be able to hold more ingredients at any given point in time.
Beautiful. The questions about distribution is about retail distribution. One is mentioned about Queensland. Do you have any plans to distribute better there? And the other investor is asking about running warehouse or Rebel or stores like that. Do you have any plans to sell into those stores?
So Queensland first. So that's a great question. Queensland, we really, well, first of all, distribution. Queensland will kick off with IGA supermarkets in June. We've got an agreement ready to kick off IGA. So that'll be for the Prep products and Advantage Plus products into IGA supermarkets in Queensland. In terms of and why is in Queensland an important market for us, particularly for the Advantage Plus product? So many, well, for people who live in Queensland, the sun's up really early all the time, and that's a daylight savings thing. But a lot of the before school sports stuff happens in Queensland. It's not after school. It's majority of it happens before, where in the southern states or the like, it can be before or after school. It depends when it is. So we do know that Queensland, you know, it does have a bigger issue, and it is hotter and more humid and those sorts of things. So we can see Advantage Plus being a big product up there. In terms of other retail chains, as we've built the brand, it's interesting when you put the brand out there like we have here on Birchal again, you just get more and more connections and you're able to do things better. So we feel that we'll be able to springboard into those sorts of retail chains off the back of this. And we've built the brand well. Part of that is, yes, Travis Head has certainly brought a lot more eyeballs and attention to our brand, but we'll also be able to bounce off the back of, we've got potentially 4 ambassadors at Olympians. So after the Olympics, we can't do much before it, which is a bit frustrating because of funding and bits and pieces. But after the Olympics, we'll be able to lean into that and use our Olympians and their results. I think it's a great result that they get there, but there's some, you know, opportunity for the girls and guys to do some great stuff over there. So we'll be able to lean into that from an advertising and marketing perspective as well. And from a good raise, we'll have the funds to be able to really do that well.
Beautiful, thank you. I hope that answers, but if it doesn't, let us know, then we can circle back to this. Will it have to have FDA approved before it can be sold in the US?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we can sell online direct to the US at this point in time. One of the other marketplaces that we are working with at the moment and are close to being able to have it done is a platform in the US called RangeMe. So through the Department of Trade and Investment here in SA, they've got us working with RangeMe to have our products ready for sale on or in the US. We can ship them from here initially whilst we wait for FDA approval to happen. Part of the raise funds that we use out of this raise will be for, whilst I'm in the US for that Strava event, we're going to catch up with the department over there as well, and they've got some manufacturers and also distribution agents for us to meet too, so that we can get that happening. Look, we will need FDA approval. We do. We've got FDA approval on the science that we're using, so we believe that that will shorten the process to make that happen. So it's work in progress, but to answer your question in a simple way, yes, we will.
Beautiful. We have 5 more questions to go through. So if you guys are all happy to stay a little bit longer, I'm happy to continue this going.
Yeah, cool.
That's it. Emerson is asking about the forecast revenue growth, which I'm gonna answer, and new products over the next year or so. Emerson, obviously, before you make an investment decision, we're gonna release an offer document that we're finishing up this week. So next week, when the offer is open, you're gonna have this document. How long is it so far, Andrew? 50 pages?
Not quite that long, not quite, maybe 49.
So promise you that all the information in order for you to make a decision is gonna be there. But it's essentially all the financial statements from the past and all the plans for the future as well. When it comes to the products, I'm gonna pass on to Andrew.
So new product development, we certainly are looking to expand the range in terms of flavors. So we've already done some preliminary work with Steric, who are a manufacturer around that, particularly in the ready-to-drink range with some different flavors along those profiles. And we'll do some exciting things around marketing around that to bring eyeballs to the brand as well. But yes, new product development is certainly a part of what we want to do over the next 2 years.
Awesome. Tim is asking, what percentage of your sales comes from at an event advertisement versus online?
At event, did you say?
Yeah, I think you meant, and Tim, please let us know if that's what you meant. But from my understanding is when you have an event on and you actually go there and support versus the sales that normally happens on the website.
Look, it's a good question, and Tim, I couldn't break it out directly like that. What I do know is every time we go to events, we get more and more sales every time. There's not an event where we go backwards. With the last big event we did was Three Peaks, which was up at Falls Creek, and we sold out. So we took about 50% more product than we took 2 years prior. It was obviously last year it wasn't on, and we sold out of product. So that for me, that is just showing that the brand is growing. There is more brand awareness around the brand. People are using our product more readily. Our great brand ambassadors like Izzy is doing a wonderful job in terms of promoting the brand and letting people know. And so when you sell out, that's good. But e-commerce would certainly make up a hell of a lot more than what events do, because we don't go to events every other weekend. But when we do go, we do get really good sale numbers.
And do you see that they're recurring customers after that?
We do. We see recurring customers either from one-off purchasing and or the subscription model that we've got that is continuing to grow as well, where people can subscribe and just get a delivery, whether it be monthly, 2 monthly or 3 monthly. But we've certainly got a growing list of subscribers.
Beautiful. Phil is asking, what are the aim with the CSF program? What are the opportunities that the funding is going to unlock for your business?
Yeah, so it will give us the ability to, from a sports perspective, if we just talk about prep to start with, from that, we will need to continue to grow the brand in, I guess, the sports space, and allows us to get to more events. As events come back online, we can go to more events and do those. And we find that we call it liquid on lips at events. Once we get the liquid on people's lips at events, we get more customers. Really, it's a really good customer acquisition program. So events for Prepped is probably the main thing. For Advantage Plus, there are conferences where teachers or health and wellness people will go along to those conferences and look for new things for the school, for the canteen, and making sure the canteen's healthy and got all the right foods in it. So we'll be able to go to those conferences and present there, and it's like a trade show. And it'll be exactly the same for the mining industry. So it's conferences and being able to go to trade shows and be able to get ourselves in. And I guess if you think about it, it's like sports events for all 3 different industries. I touched on before distribution and our ability to get to the US and set up manufacturing and distribution in the US. It will be a key part of it as well. And then continuing to grow a brand ambassador program. Whilst we've been absolutely blessed with the brand ambassadors we've got, we know we still need to continue to grow that. And if we could find, I guess, more brand ambassadors to get us into new markets, that's important part of the marketing growth strategy. Supermarkets fall into that as well, the ability to advertise in catalogs and get people aware of shelf talkers and those sorts of things. So they're all, I guess, marketing the brand, going to events, and setting up new distribution channels would be the key three things.
Beautiful, thank you. Phil, let us know if that answers. Owen is asking, where is the product made?
In Sydney, everything else is done out of South Australia.
Beautiful. Is there any plans to reduce the price and make it more affordable for casual runners?
Yeah, great question. And that's a production thing. So the more we produce, the better, the lower our cogs are to produce it. Then we can pass on some savings at some point in time, for sure, definitely. We know that when we pitched it at the market, the prep products in particular, we pitched that at the market being a premium product. And so that is certainly something we would like to do, is to be able to advertise more, to get more customers to sell more, so we can make bigger runs. The bigger the run we make, or the more that we manufacture, the cheaper the run, if that makes sense.
It does. Julie asked a really good question. I think the professor is going to be the best one to answer, but let me know. Can the product address people recovering from illnesses, so gastro illnesses especially? She's saying as an alternative to Gastrolite.
Yes, so we haven't actually tested this particular product in that sort of context. And when you come to medical illnesses, I have to be much more careful about what we say and the claims and the evidence behind that. However, in the clinical trials that we did with oral rehydration solution with the resistant starch added to them, so it's really like a Gastrolite, but with the resistant starch added. There was no question that the resistant starch was a significant improvement over and above what was seen just with the Gastrolite. So I would see no reason why this wouldn't be the sports and all of the prep products wouldn't be an assistance in a medical situation. And I can tell you now, we've had interest from oncologists and so on who really want to know, well, people are getting chemotherapeutic drugs and they're getting diarrhea. Can we use the resistant starch types products in that situation? The answer is certainly yes, but we do not specifically have a medically approved product, which is much more complicated than the sort of simplified sports situation. Nonetheless, if you've got an attack of gastroenteritis, you're recovering, you could take this with safety. This is not going to create any problems in that sort of situation. Yeah.
Beautiful. With that in mind, any future plans to tap into the healthcare industry?
We would love to be able to do that. And to be frank with you, if PrEP is success and gets some funding behind this, that would be the way to go. But the path to market is probably 1,000 times more expensive than it is in the sort of environment you're talking about now. So it's a question of one step at a time, really. Yeah.
With that being said, for us to finish it off, Andrew, what people didn't drop off since the beginning of the webinar. So everyone that was here for over an hour, nobody dropped off. So it's really good. It definitely shows how interested these investors are. With that in mind, if I'm an investor, I want to go ahead, obviously after checking the offer document, how can I support the business? What can I do?
Well, as you said, Layla, read the offer document, take in all the information. We are building a community of passionate followers, and from the first investment round that we did with Birchal back in 2020, we realised that the power of a group, or the power of a community behind the brand, was amazing, and we've seen that continually grow. And so we would love to raise a great amount of money. You'll see that in the offer document, but there from $250 is the minimum that people will be able to invest from, and the more the merrier is what I'd say. And we just love people to be on the journey with us. It's an exciting time. We love that we've got 2 new products to bring to the market, and we'd love people to jump on the journey and help us reshape the way people think about hydration globally.
And obviously, if you have any questions about the investment, reach out to Andrew and the team. They're going to be happy to have a chat. If this is not very clear from the Birchal side, how to use the website, what is an offer, if it's your first time investing, let us know. We have a lot of educational content, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help however I can as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Layla.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you, Izzy, for joining us, Professor and Andrew.
Thank
This
you.
was pretty good. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope this was insightful. The offer is gonna go live next week. If you haven't expressed your interest yet, go ahead and do it now so you can invest before anyone else.
Thanks,
Thank
Layla.
you.
Right.